I'm excited to share with you today. We have a special guest, Melissa Leong. Melissa is a 20-year finance professional, a mother of three, an author, a small business owner, and a lover of having her cake and eating it too. Melissa is the owner of 2 Cents Consulting and the author of Efficiency Bitch: How Ambitious Women Can Have It All Without Doing It All. Don't we need that? Please welcome to the show, Melissa Leong. I love that you wrote a book called Efficiency Bitch.
Thanks. People usually love it or hate it. They're like, did you really do that? Yeah, I did. I did it.
Yeah.
I trademarked it. I got shirts. I got hats. Like, yeah, it's a thing. It's a podcast. It's a whole thing. I did first because I couldn't get the book out fast enough, So
I understand that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I totally get that. So, but you use the word bitch as an acronym.
I do. Yeah,
Can you talk to us about that?
for sure. Actually, that's part of what the podcast helped me do. I'll say the acronym stands for bank, inbox, time, connection, and harmony. So the subtitle of the book is How Ambitious Women Can Have It All Without Doing It All. And then I use B.I.T.C.H as the 5 pillars of becoming efficient and kind of the areas that I think being efficient in can really help you have your best life. I use the phrase fall in love with your future self quite a bit. And that is how I believe we can really be efficient is think about your future self and in your money, in your inbox like task management, in your time. Connection is a huge part of it. And then connection with other people or how you spend your time in your community. And then harmony is like the bow that puts it all together. I originally started like health or happiness, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't the full picture. And then it clicked. Actually, my mom came up with the idea of harmony. It's like the the thing we want, right? It's the way we want our lives to feel, not balanced, but in harmony. So that final chapter is of those pieces. And without the podcast, I don't think I would have stumbled across the acronym. I couldn't get the book out fast enough. I like couldn't type enough, and you know how it goes. You type too much and then it's just not the right pieces. And so I had to think on it. And I was at a gas station one day and I thought, that's what the podcast is missing. And then it turned into a book format too. So the podcast follows the same B.I.T.C.H format, and each episode focuses on one of those pillars.
So how did that start? So were you not being efficient and then it like kind of came together and you're like, "Oh, if I start doing these things, my life
Yeah.
gets a little bit better."
So it's a couple different, how these webs always weave themselves in such amazing ways. You can step back and go, yes, that's where we were headed the whole time. My mom and I got into a fight when I was 18, and this is the origin of this word efficiency bitch. And I called her an efficiency bitch. I was not being very nice. I was using the B word in a really mean way. But I was 18 and like really cool. So my mom and I have called each other EBs forever, 25 plus years. And my sister's an EB and my daughter's an EB. And that just is this love language between us to say, you get shit done and you're good at it. And like, you're awesome. I wanted to write a book in December of 2019. I decided I wanted to write a book to teach women about money so that they could talk to their children about money. I own a company called 2 Cents Consulting, and we specifically work on time and money for small business owners. So the whole goal is to teach small business owners how to read their financial statements. And what I started to figure out was that the humans behind the businesses not only needed to learn the money for their business, but in their personal life. And if you don't have that solid foundation, it can be, well, one, very triggering. There's a lot of very uncomfortable conversations that come when you talk about money. And so I had this like personal passion project that I wanted to write this book. And I started down that path. And as I finished writing what I thought was my book, I had all this other stuff I wanted to say. And so I kept writing, and that's where like some of my opinions about time management or task management or how I get things done or how I show up in my community really started to come out of me. And the podcast was some way for me to figure that outlet out. And so I started having guests on the show and kind of fine tuning my own thoughts and processes there. And for a while, it was like bold, balanced, blessed. That was my thing. It was like efficiency B, and it could be any of those things. And I was trying to work through these things, but I couldn't get it to fully line up. And then, like I said, one day at the gas station, like I can still picture it in my head, like a light bulb went off. And I thought, that's it. That's the formula. And it's really worked ever since then. And it seems to be bite size enough in the book as well as episodes to really be able to absorb it and make quick changes that are impactful.
But you are a financial professional.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, do you see a lot of women that have a hard time with finances?
9.5 out of 10. Yeah. Generationally speaking, not all women. I mean, I'm a woman that is really good at finances personally, and it's what I teach as well. But I also was a bank teller at age 16. I was working with other people's money long before I had any of my own. And I saw how triggering it was for a lot of adults. I saw 40-year-olds come into the bank, and this is the 90s, so people still went into the bank. Um, and would say to me, like, I need money. And I'd say, you don't have any money in your account. And they'd say, but I have checks. And it like started to really occur to me that these grown-ups, I was 16, right? Didn't understand that just because you had a checkbook didn't mean you had money in the bank. And it's a gross example, right? Like obviously that's going very far into the spectrum, but it's a real example. And then I would see other people who would just take all of their money out every single pay period and then have nothing. And I was seeing these very polarizing examples of adults from my 16-year-old lens who didn't understand how money worked. And it was, looking back on it, very impactful for my life. At the time, I didn't recognize what it was doing. I also was working for the bank when I was 18 and being thrown credit card applications right at, I went to Northern Arizona University and they would just give us credit card applications for a t-shirt. I didn't know any better, so I did it. And then pretty soon I was getting, your credit report sucks. Now you have to go get a secured credit card in order to get your credit line back up. If I hadn't been working for the bank, I wouldn't have known what that was, and I wouldn't have figured out how to manage that, right? So, um, what I do know now is that people more than ever, women more than ever, want to learn about money. Doesn't mean the triggers aren't still there, but their mothers probably didn't know a lot about it. I mean, women in the United States weren't allowed to have a credit card or a mortgage by themselves until 1974. And my mom was in her 30s when that happened. So how do you
Right.
teach your daughter about a credit card if you're just learning about it for the first time when you're 30? Um, my children won't have that, right? I talk to my kids about money constantly. They're 8, 10, and 12. And my goal is that they just have a vocabulary and have the comfort to discuss it. The concepts are way over their heads. That's not what's important, but just the comfort of the dialogue, um, and being to understand how you understand where to go find the answers, even if you don't have them up front.
That is important. Wow. Like I'm
And it
not,
is
you
also
know,
circumstantial, right? And I think most people would say they either want to be just like their mom or whoever that role model is, or nothing like them. And maybe they want to have parts of them, but not parts over here. And so my mother was a police officer in the 70s.
wow.
She was a cop before she could have a credit card. So, like, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Um, but she was one of the first female police officers in Tucson, Arizona. And so I had this role model who was very forward thinking and and my dad was the same way, like very, you don't have to wear pink. You can, they were raising a little girl to be those things, but they still thought that I should learn to cook and they still thought that I should learn to clean. And they still kind of put me in that gender bucket. I don't cook or clean, for the record. I am the sole breadwinner of my household. Like, we have a very different gender norm in our house, and it's great. My kids see their dad cook and their mom work, and we're all perfectly comfortable in the roles that we sit in. Um, and so things are changing, and that's all super awesome. I'd say most of my clients for 2 cents are in their 40s, kind of, and I'm 43. So like we're in that kind of cusp generation of we were partially raised to we can be anything we want to be, but we also kind of were raised in some of those gender norms, and our mothers most certainly were. So if you're in the younger bucket and you're being raised by a 30 something or a 40 something year old, maybe you don't have those same opinions because that wasn't the reality of your world at the time.
Right. Yeah.
Some of it is so like just beaten into people from a young age that they
Yeah.
can't understand that that's not the way that the world is changing into it. I'm really happy to be part of the movement of it. I mean, that the subtitle
Yes.
of my book alone being How Ambitious Women Can Have It All Without Doing It All. You don't have to run yourself ragged to have a corporate job or not even a corporate job, run your own business, have a job and have a household and kids. I've got all of those things. I have a corporate job. I run my own business. I'm an author and a podcaster, and I've got 3 kids. And I don't do all of the things. My husband does a lot of the things. Some things I outsource, some things my kids do, and some things I just say no to. And all of those are good options. And some of those things, they change over time, right? Like I couldn't necessarily outsource a cleaning of my home many years ago, and now I do. And those things change over time. And sometimes you just need to be given permission to try it. It's funny, we kind of wait for society to tell us green light. Um, so this is your sign if you're listening.
Oh, tell us, yes, to give us the okay. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that, and I think everyone should just whoever's the best at the job. My husband does a lot of the cooking. Every once in a while, I have specialty things that I will cook, but he does the bulk of the cooking. He takes care of the kids. He's driving them to school.
Yeah, mine too. And he loves it. I mean, I've had so many times where I've say to him, "Are you good? Do you like what you're doing or do you?" And he's like, "This is great. I love it." Like, awesome. And then
Mhm.
I think about all the men and women of past generations who were forced into a particular role because that's what they were told to do. How many men hated what they did and they'd be rather be home cooking, and how many women I would be miserable as a stay-at-home mother. Like a really hard job. I never
Mhm.
wanted to be one. It's just not part of who I am. Um, and I feel like I need to defend that that is a very hard job. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it. It's just not part of my DNA. I would do it if I had to, but I
Oh,
don't want to. So
right.
I chose
Right.
I chose a partner who was cool with me never being a stay-at-home mom. He never wanted that. His mom was a working mother, and he wanted that too. So a lot of it, and I tell my girls this all the time. I should tell my son too, but I always tell my girls who you pick as a partner is going to have a huge impact on you as an adult and your happiness. My husband is a huge part of my happiness, not just from an emotional level, but from getting things done level. So, if you've got a spouse who's not willing to pick up more than their fair share, those are difficult pieces to take care to walk through for sure.
Well, I think, we live in the country, so and, our closest town is very small. So I know that for us, and particularly when we go to town and he's talking to other local people, he has to talk a little bit differently, and he doesn't exactly share everything that he does at
Yeah.
home because there is a lot of stigma. It
Yep.
you know,
Yeah,
and
there is. It's strange, right? I mean,
yeah.
it's strange. I am still very aware of it, that we're the anomaly. I'm still
Yes.
very, very aware of that. Um, and it's like there's certain time, and I've got family members who will say, like, oh, well, that's emasculating to him. And he's like, I don't feel emasculated. I'm good. My husband's a bow hunter, by the way. He's out hunting as we speak. Like, there's so much that's more than just a who cooks, right? I don't
Right.
know. But if that's not what you believe or that's not what you've been raised in, like that's okay too. But part of the recognition, I think, is understanding that other people don't feel that way. So
Mhm.
that's who my book is for. My book is for the women who are like, dang, I want to work and I want to have a family and I want to enjoy my life while I'm doing it. Burnout's been like the buzzword of the 2000s. Like so many women have been trying to keep this home and this happy family and have a career, and they're just exhausted. And I hit that level about 5 years ago. I'd say pretty often that Supermom tried to kill me. I was trying to be this big, awesome supermom, and I was like PTO president and Girl Scout troop leader. And I was working a giant corporate job where I was traveling all over the globe. Um, and it just absolutely wore me out. I was like
Mhm.
just trying to do all the things. And then one day I woke up and I was like, what the hell am I doing? I don't want to do all these things. And so that's when things started to shift. And when I talk about, when I got done writing my book, I realized I had a lot more to say. It was kind of all through all that time. And it's one of those healing pieces when you do the work on yourself and you start to figure out what fixed it for you. Like the best part is being able to share it with other people in any way that you do it. Some people write a book, some people host a podcast. Okay, I do both. But some people get up on stage and some people share it amongst their friends. It's the most satisfying part of that healing process is sharing it with other people. And I am a self-help reader, podcaster, audible, like I love those types of content. Even if it's not helping me, I can feel the other person's healing happening.
Mhm.
I just think it's really, really cool that, well, one, that we have these platforms now to be able to do it more than we've ever done before. But also that so many people are willing to put their heart and soul into this work. It's cool.
When you say we don't have to do it all, now, what exact like, you mean we don't have to edit and we don't have to also do the marketing and run the social media? Or do you mean we don't have to mother and cook and clean and all of those, or all of it?
All of it. Um, I'll give you some examples. Like I said, I was trying to be PTO president and Girl Scout troop leader, and I was like kindergarten room mom, and I was coaching softball and like doing all the things and running the corporate career. And then I was also trying to cook, and I couldn't figure that out. So then I like figured out ordering HelloFresh would be a great idea. And so that was the first time I thought, like there are things out there that can make me more efficient and still make me feel like I'm doing all the things, keep all the plates spinning, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then the next thing that happened was like, I can't keep all this in my brain. This isn't right. My husband's not taking on any of the load. And so at the time, he had a full-time corporate career. He was a golf professional for a long time. And we had this moment, a very tense moment in our marriage where I said, "Look, I'm doing too much." And I wrote down everything that I was doing. And it was things from like kids' birthday party planning to Christmas planning, but also things as simple as like remembering to get the mail because you have like the community mailbox. It's not like right out at the end of my drive like it used to be. Um, just things like that are daily, remembering to feed the dog or remembering to do X, Y, put the trash out. You like take your pick of the chore. I need you to take some of this on. And he was like, I remember so vividly, he said to me, I do more than most dads. And I just was like,
Mm.
what? Well, I make more money than most moms. So, no, that wasn't really what I said. But that's what I was thinking is like, if that's the game you want to play, if that's who you're comparing yourself to, those women don't work. And so that was what I was like, you're imagining a generation where the dads worked and did none of the household stuff and the mom made no income, but her job was to take care of the home. That's not what we have. We're both bringing in income. So therefore we should both be taking care of the household. Um, and so we started having those conversations, and those things really started making me realize I was accepting those tasks as mine. He wasn't putting them on me. Like, and that shift changed my marriage. It probably saved my marriage because for a very long time I was like, you aren't taking it. And then what I realized was like, oh, I'm just holding it and refusing to let it go. And so that was some of the inner work that I had to do there. And believe me, it was hard to let it all go. It got harder about a year and a half ago. My husband left his corporate job to work for 2 Cents Consulting and to help take care of the household. It was really hard for me not to do pickups and drop offs every day or take my son to his orthodontist appointments. I wanted to be there. I was so used to being that primary caregiver. It was really difficult. But what's interesting is I forget now some of those things. I'll forget that I got to wash my daughter's uniforms because my husband always does it. And so now I can see so clearly that he wasn't leaving that for me. I was doing it. So he was letting me. And That was a lot of like the energy that I put into Efficiency Bitch was a lot of that type of, oh, okay. Like you can let this go. You can let other people help you. You can become a master at money. You can become a master at task management, but you can also let people help and do some of it. And then you won't be so exhausted that you can't stay up past 8 o'clock.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. That is so true. I think that with your husband, that is what so many of us do. You're
Mhm.
like, we're so mad at you for not doing all this stuff, but yeah,
And
I
I
think that
mean, women aren't the bad guy, and neither are men.
no.
It's just the way sometimes it pans out. And it's funny. I think this sometimes when our kids were little, like really little, and we would go to a restaurant, I would go, like, let's say like a Chipotle, like a counter service. I would go sit down with the kids at the table and entertain them. And my husband would go to the counter and get everybody's order in and get their drinks and bring the supplies back to us. Because otherwise, we got toddlers running all over the restaurant and it's crazy, right? We still do that. And my kids are 8, 10, and 12. And I kind of laugh now, like, why did I just go sit at the table with the kids and do nothing? Because my kids don't need me to babysit them like they used to. Why am I not at the counter with my husband helping him get drinks? But it's a habit that we created a really long time ago, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you just have to disrupt those habits, and they can be in the smallest things of who takes the trash out or who checks the mail. Like, it's amazing what a burden some of those things can be. And especially if you feel like it's been left for you versus like a dialogue about who's going to do it.
Yes. Yes. For me, that's a big thing.
Well, I mean, it's obnoxious to feel like somebody just assumes that that's what we're supposed to do, right? Like you
Right.
also don't need to assume that I'm going to have children just because I'm a woman. Some women don't want to have children. Some women can't have
Right.
children. Like you don't need to assume anything about me. But I did a lot of research when I was writing Efficiency Bitch because I really wanted to understand where a lot of this stuff came from. And a lot of it's marketing. It's pretty clever. In the long ago's in the early 1900s there was ice boxes, but there was no refrigerators, and so women would go to the grocery store for the day and get the supplies to cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, but there was not a lot of extra because there was nowhere to put it, right? It wouldn't stay till the next day, so you ate. They went one dime and they ate for the day, and it wasn't a lot of extra. When refrigerators and preservatives showed up on the market, that's when the marketing really kicked in of these big meals, and that you have to have breakfast on the table and lunch on the table and dinner on the table. And it became a marketing strategy for fill the refrigerator, right? And
Mhm.
it worked. And then also in the 1920s, there was a lot of conversation. There was no vacuums, right? So you had to clean your home very strategically based on the weather. That's why spring cleaning is a thing because you didn't want in the winter, in most places in Arizona, you could open the windows in the winter times, right? It would be too cold. So then spring cleaning showed up because that was typically warm enough that you could open the windows, but no bugs would come in. And so then you would take care of the cleaning in one portion. Well, then enter vacuum cleaners and cleaning products. That's when they really started the push on women that you got to clean all the time. They were trying to sell product and it works, right? And look at
Mhm.
what happened. Um, it's really clever. Like if you go back and you start reading a lot about like how these things came about, most of it's marketing. I don't drink alcohol. I quit drinking about 4 years ago, and I've done a lot of research on that space too. And it's all marketing. Like the reason we all like to drink is because of the way that it's marketed to us. It's in our subconscious. Um, and it looks like everybody's having a good time. So guess what we think we want and advertise to children that way. Smoking in this country, right, was a huge thing. The tobacco farms were a big
Mhm.
deal many years ago. And in the 90s, I'm sure you'll remember this, there was cartoon camel, like
Mhm.
the camel cartoon guy and the Marlboro Man and all of those pieces, and they heavy marketed to kids. The Looney Tunes smoked, and it was just a big deal. And now you can't market to children, and you can't smoke in restaurants, and Looney Tunes can't smoke. And guess what? Like a lot of that's gone because the
Mhm.
marketing efforts behind it changed. And I think if you start to recognize a lot of these things that we think are normal are really just really clever marketing ads, it's like, oh. I see it now. I see what's happening. And of course,
The veil.
being a business professional and being in finance and accounting, like I can use that to my advantage to help my clients make more money because what you say in marketing does matter and you can see it start to unfold in the financial statements. So, I don't know. It's interesting and I geek out on some of the research on those pieces, as you can tell.
I love that. When I'm not working, that's usually what I'm doing is researching some interesting topic just because. So I
Yeah.
love that.
I'm a documentary person and my kids and I just finished watching You Are What You Eat last night and it was a huge vegan propaganda documentary that they marketed as being a twin study and it turned out like to be this giant vegan thing, which I'm not a vegan, but I really appreciated a lot of the information that they provided. But we were talking about, remember how we saw the trailer on this and we were interested and then like look at how it turned out. Do you see how different they market it to you just to get you to buy in on the characters and
Mhm.
so but it's everywhere and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but just the awareness of it I think is interesting.
I agree. I agree. If anyone connected with you today, how can they find you online?
EfficiencyBitch.com is usually the easiest to remember. 2 Cents Consulting is my business. It's SENSE, so you can find me there. But they all lead back to me. And I'm on, Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, all the places.
All the places. Awesome. I appreciate you coming on today. You remind me so much of myself.
It's great. Thank you.
The Zarlequan Indieverse.